Prime Minister Imran Khan said Wednesday that Afghanistan was in this situation because of Washington military failure in the country. In an interview with the PBS News host Jody Woodruff asked Prime Minister Imran Khan multiple questions about Pakistan's point of view for Afghanistan and its relationship with the United States. When she asked the Prime Minister about his assessment of the situation in Afghanistan, he said that Washington had really mixed up the situation in Afghanistan.
Prime Minister Khan, thank you very much for joining us. Let me start by asking you your assessment of the situation in Afghanistan right now with U.S. troops almost completely out after 20 years.
Well, Judy, I think the U.S. has really messed it up in Afghanistan. You see, first of all, they tried to look for a military solution in Afghanistan when there never was one. And people like me who kept saying that there's no military solution, who know the history of Afghanistan, people like me were called anti-American. I was called Taliban Khan. For anyone who objected to this way of, I don't know what the objective was in Afghanistan, whether it was to have some nation building or democracy or liberate the women, whatever the cause was, the way they went about it was never going to be the solution.
First of all, they tried to look for a military solution in Afghanistan when there was never one. And people like me who know the history of Afghanistan and keep saying there is not military solution were called anti-American. I was called Taliban Khan, said Prime Minister Imran Khan. Prime Minister Imran Khan also shared that despite the US being in Afghanistan for 20 years, he does not know what the US objective was in the country. He also lamented the way US dealt with this solution. The Prime Minister explained that when the NATO forces had decided that there was no military solution, the bargaining power they had was gone. When they finally decided there is no military solution, unfortunately, the bargaining power of the American or NATO forces had gone. Prime Minister Imran Khan said, he added that the US should have gone for a political solution when 150,000 NATO troops were in Afghanistan. Prime Minister Imran Khan said it's very difficult to force them into a political solution because they think that they won.
The worst situation in Afghanistan would be if there's a civil war and a protracted civil war. And from Pakistan's point of view, that is the worst case scenario, because we face two scenarios. One, a refugee problem. Already Pakistan is hosting over 3 million Afghan refugees. And what we fear is that a protracted civil war would mean more refugees. And you know, our economic situation is not such that we can have another influx. Secondly, the worry is that the civil war will flow into Pakistan. Because, you know, the Taliban are basically ethnic Pashtuns. Now, there are more Pashtuns on our side of the border than in Afghanistan. And so the worry is that if this goes on, the Pashtuns on our side will be drawn into it. So that also is the last thing we want.